Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to go over the process for starting a resubmission. So resubmission means you have not mastered that first initial scan and you need to resubmit the report with your newly made edits in order to get it marked as mastered. So some of these things, you know, you're going to make mistakes in the first week or so of the course, but as you go, those mistakes you should kind of pick up habits so that as you're starting to scan, you will make less frequent mistakes as you go on. So this is an example of a student's submitted report that was not mastered. So just be mindful that the answers are not necessarily correct in this scan. So you'll see here some notes and feedback from the instructor. If you open this up on Moodle, you would be able to scan over this comment and just quickly read what it says. Because I have it opened as a PDF, simply for me to read the comment bubble, I will have to click on it and it'll take me directly to the index of comments and let me read what the instructor wrote. But I can see here, I just want to give you a visual that throughout the scan, various things could be marked off and feedback could be given in different ways. So this instructor has, highlighted the areas. I'm guessing that they're saying, you're missing your indications and medications. We can also tell that they didn't include their name as well here. And then there's a couple comments about their technical comments that they've made. So we will take a look at those in a moment. I'm just going to scroll down to some strips. Now, every instructor will mark differently. Sometimes if the strip is correct, you may see a check mark. You might see nothing at all. And, no feedback can be good feedback, means that there's nothing for us to comment on. But occasionally you will see either an X or a frown face. So this is an example of where there is something we wanted to bring to your attention. So you want to take a look at the feedback comment that is left with this throughout your report. So let's just jump right to the feedback comments and get an overview of what we need to fix in this scan in order for it to be mastered. So it says that we were missing our indications and medications. There's quite a few things here noted about the technical comments. So 1.2 was posted near the SVPBs. So we're asking, how long was the run? They said there was one run, but they didn't include how many beats it was, or what about the heart rate for that longest run? This needs to be included in our comments. And if you use the technical comment template, you'll see that that is something that's listed. Second thing was, were the VPBs multifocal in this case? So if they're multifocal, coming from different places in the ventricle, showing that different morphologies of VPBs are happening, we want to state that in our comment that there were multifocal VPBs. There's a comment here letting us know they said there was no ST changes, but they likely stated, no ST changes, but they did not comment on T waves. So just be mindful that you also need to look at T wave inversions. And if there are any inversions in any of the channels, we would want to mention that as well. And then lastly, for the technical comments, they said, please include your heart rate with your diary entries, add them to your resubmission. So as I scroll up, we can see that they correlated the rhythm, so that there was sinus rhythm, but they didn't include the heart rate with that diary entry. So again, when you're reading the comment bubbles, if you're wondering what is correlated with what, you can see it in Moodle, or you can, as a PDF, if you click the bubble, it'll take you right to the comment 1.3. Now, so the first three are telling us we need to open up the scan and fix a lot of our comments. There's a few other notes here. So we're going to skip 8.1 for a second. We'll see here on 8.2, they said there was a double strip there, and we only want to keep one of those for redundancy for the physician. And again, 10.1, that comment said there is a double strip from what is above. They listed the maximum R to R, and the next one was an SVPB. Because they were pretty much at the same time, you could just keep one of the strips and fix the label, change it to max R to R and SVPB altogether. And then this one is saying that we were missing a label. So let's just go up and look at those strips so you have a visual of what we're talking about. So this is 12.1 where they said they're missing a label on the strip. We'd want to call this normal sinus rhythm because we can see they're at a heart rate of 76. So I scroll up here. This is letting us know where the strip is pretty well a duplicate strip. So 949, 29, 949, 33. It is the maximum heart rate and it is correctly labeled as an SVPB. But rather than showing two strips of the same thing with a different label, we could unmark one of these and just edit the name to show just the one strip as max R to R slash SVPB. All right. And then there was a comment about duplicate strips. So here's an example where there is two VPBs that are happening in the strip, and they're filing each of them separately, kind of centering them in the middle of the strip. But really, they are the same time of day. So I would just include this as one strip, and you could label it as VPBs, plural, with a little s on the end, saying that there's more than one. This strip here, we're trying to highlight and bring to your attention that, well, read the comment, 8.1. It says, notice how the beat after the aberrant SVPB does not have a tick marker. This is an SVPB pair, but is not marked as such as the tick marker is missing. We need to insert the tick marker and label it as a pair for this to get mastered. So as we go up and look at it again, we can see that there is a little yellow line above the first aberrant SVPB, but then you can see that the R to R range is reading as 0.99. So that's quite a bit further when we know there is a QRS complex happening here. So we are missing a tick marker for this second SVPB, and that would cause this from both the software side of things to now understand it as a SVPB pair, but also when we keep it and we want to label it in our report, we'd want to label it as SVPB couplet or pair. So from the very beginning of the scan, when we're looking at our answer keys, we would see that there is a pair in the scan, but throughout this report, it wasn't noted as such because it was missing that tick marker. So what are the next steps we need to take to go back and remaster a scan? Well, first thing we're going to do is find the patient in the list of patients. So maybe it's practice case 1, maybe it's some other case that you've been working on, but you will open up the case, and this won't be a true reflection because we don't have the student's work saved on my Holter software. So I want to think about, what do I need to change? Well, I needed to change some technical comments. I needed to remove some duplicate strips, and I needed to correct and add a tick marker where there wasn't one with that SVPB pair. So the very first thing you do once you open up the scan, I recommend make a little list for yourself so you know what feedback you're given and letting you know what you need to correct. And then go to the list of strips, either in your report. Now, this case, we don't have much filed, but you would see all of the strips you have filed in the report. You can also look at the report itself, and you could take a look at these times and see what you've saved and know which ones were correct. We had no feedback around the beginning of recording or these first bunch of strips that were filed for the report. So we want to make sure that on the resubmission, all of these that were there before are included back in the resubmission. But if you've watched the video prior to this talking about pitfalls of the Holter software, you're going to realize that soon as we start editing and changing things in the report, some of these strips are going to be removed or no longer marked for the report. So just keep that in mind, whether you look at the feedback file you had, or if you come into the report and look at your list of strips that are filed, take note, whether it's on paper or on your computer, which ones are correct that you want to make sure are put back into this resubmission. So now that you have that noted, you could go in and you could start changing your technical comments, and you can start editing your beats. So this is just a random test scan. It hasn't been cleaned up, but let's just say this was accidentally in the report as a VPB. We know it's not. We don't want it to count in our total numbers. There's less than 10 VPBs in this scan. So we will clean a few of these up. I'm just going to mark a couple of these as normal, pretending that we're editing what the instructor asked us to. And then we're going to come back to our list of strips page. And because we've edited the data, what is going to happen is anything that we had previously marked off in our report. So if this is marked being orange, you can also see it under marked here versus display all. Once you edit the data, it's going to cause the list of strips, what you've had saved, to become unsaved. So that's where it's important that once you have done and corrected everything that you were asked to correct, come back to your notes or look at your feedback file here and make sure you put all of these strips that you've selected back into the report. So something like beginning of recording, that would live under your selected strips. Things like a VPB or an SVPB, those are going to be found under SVPBs, and you would want to take a look at the timing to make sure you reselect the same one you had in your report. Diary entries, you might have done them as a selected strip, so you might have something listed saying that they were feeling something, or you might have selected it from the diary list itself. Just make sure whichever one you select is the same one that you've had in your initial report that was correct. Once you verify everything, we're going to go back to our reports page. We've edited our comments, and what we're going to do is generate a new report by clicking preview. Now, at this point, I highly recommend and highly suggest that once you generate the report and you have your new PDF present in front of you, I recommend that you give yourself a 5 to 10 minute eye break. And this is because students sometimes will try to resubmit their reports quite quickly. And if you make mistakes, if you start rushing, what can happen is you might resubmit it and you might have forgot to re-put in your minimum and maximum heart rates. That's now going to cause your resubmission to also be not mastered. There's certain critical things that you do need to have within your report in order for it to be mastered. So make use of those checklists that do exist in this course. And having 5 or 10 minutes away from your scan to come back and re-review that feedback from your instructor just to verify, yes, I've corrected everything that they've asked me to. I've changed all of the comments that they asked me to change. I have gone ahead and fixed the strips that they've asked me to fix. And I have re-added all of the correct strips I had in my first report back into the resubmission. So this will take practice to kind of build a routine for yourself. So please feel free to watch this video again, and I highly recommend utilizing the checklist for submissions and resubmissions that you can find in this week's content that you can use throughout the length of the Holter course. Hopefully you found this helpful, and thanks for listening.